Viking Socrates Greta Thurnberg carried her climate warrior message to Los Angeles City Hall. On a sunny, November 1, 2019, Greta Thurnberg, the now famous Swedish climate warrior, made an appearance in front of Los Angeles City Hall. She spoke to a stereotypical crowd of white, middle-class youth, mostly. Yes, older and even elderly environmentalists were present, including this narrator. Her message echoed the crowd's sentiments: something's wrong, really wrong, and it's affecting our planet's temperature. Humans caused global warming, the new climate change. For many of the kids, this idea followed their progress through years of public school education. They did not learn about the new climate change from their curriculum, but schoolyard peers. Some learned from climate science-friendly parents. And no, they did not learn so much from the corporate media until recently, yet, Greta's worldwide notoriety brought the corporate media to a ringside seat in front of the speaker's stage. In fact, the media's presence blocked the view to Greta for many. For many, the idea of human-caused climate change as a threat to their future came recently, too recently. These kids could not have engaged the climate literature or studied the chemistry and physics of climate change in school science classes, like Joseph Fourier's 1924 experiment into greenhouse gases. They were motivated to attend because, as they said to parents, quote, "the other kids are going," unquote. They had no real understanding of the science that supports the new climate change idea. Most, as this reporter learned, had never heard of NASA's Climate Kids website, for example. But yes, perhaps, some were raised on the ancient Hebrew text promising an apocalypse, and they find this newer version of an apocalypse more modern, more comfortable to digest and share with peers. For some participants, a bit of science knowledge influenced their route to this gathering of fellow believers. I say quote fellow believers unquote, because they are not, yet, true believers. They have not suffered enough, not at all. They have no idea what climate change means to their progeny, no one knows. But, Bangladesh teenagers, their counterparts on the other side of City Hall this day, have real-world experience and know the new climate change too well. For instance, hunger, heat, flood, and disease visit their worlds too often, yet, these plagues may easily belong to the City Hall crowd's progeny, and most likely will belong to the seventh generation, if any. What stood out to this reporter we see in the participants and clothing, their t-shirts. They brought their symbols of hope to the steps of this 1928 building under the banner carried across the Atlantic Ocean in a sailboat. An idea the young Swedish climate warrior brought to these shores, true to her Viking, seafaring ancestors. Greta brought forth a call to arms, not with swords and shields, but with ideas reflecting a science with roots going back to the riddle of the glaciers, a late 17th century concern among Swedish mountaineers and natural philosophers. Greta called for an end to business as usual. She asked her followers to work for the rights of the living and the unborn. No, business as usual will not satisfy Greta Thurnberg, we learned. I wonder, though, did the new climate change bring these environmentalists together? Or, as in my case, did this opportunity to showcase their causes bring them to this gathering of concerned citizens? Why this diversity and not a dedicated movement to end the threat to civilization, humankind itself? The reason, in this writer's mind, we have yet to create an all-encompassing climate change philosophy and movement powerful enough to claim its own ground, and armies of climate warriors. Yes, a climate crisis group appeared here and there. Still, like the Sea Shepherd Society, they were marginal when compared to the vegan population. Only one group outnumbered the vegans, the undeclared agnostics in the crowd. Those without symbols. We did not see Greenpeace advocates, by the way, nor did we see remnants of Earth First, a group condemned to oblivion by the FBI. And speaking of which, note the absence of a human population group presence. Do not expect an awareness of the population threat, the billions of human carbon footprints upon the Earth. It's not on the agenda, anywhere, it seems. Humanity cannot control its libido. So, I saw no call to action, not a call to humanely bring the human population to numbers sustainable by a genetically diverse planet. Not a word, not a sign, not a t-shirt notes the elephant in the crowd, any crowd, the threat of billions of humans trying to exist on a bruised planet. No group will claim their Malthusian title, another critical error laid upon the doorstep of future generations. Greta followed a few speakers that spoke several hours for their various causes. They echoed the sentiments of human-centered environmentalism. Generally, these environmentalists took their environmentalism more seriously than zombies, not in my backyard, but less seriously than will their offspring. They did not represent a more profound ecological concern, than, as we might find in deep ecology activists, for example. They are not ready for such "outlandish ideas." Still, their offspring may embrace radical environmentalism, and if they reject their parents' conservatism, they will do so out of necessity more so than rebellion. Young speakers shared a sense of urgency. Business as usual will not benefit their offspring. They know what factory farming means, our scientific rationalism's outcomes for sentient beings and climate. They saw images of a burning Amazon rainforest. They hear that their president sells off their national heritage. After all this, they do not, I hope, trust the older generation, the climate-denying generation. And here I take liberties with Greta's message because I could not hear her words. The crowd's numbers and my distance from the stage were too great. Presumably, Greta said that young people must take charge of their future. She spoke to their dire situation. She ensured them that the catastrophe at hand promises horrors beyond imagination. They must believe, and that there is no time to lose. Denounce advocates of business as usual, she must have said in her youthful, delicate manner. Like a Viking Socrates, she advocated questioning the status quo, business as usual, and then disable it. She condemned environmental degradation and moral corruption without pause and most certainly. And in summary, I wish Greta and her followers long, healthy lives and a sustainable future for the seventh generation.